Hello, all, and welcome to Nap Chatter episode 11. This episode will be called The Best Sport in the World, as I will take a dive into my wrestling career as a competitor and now as a coach. Um, I've been gone for a few weeks. I took the last 3 weeks off. I got caught up in wrestling, and I'll explain why. And then last week was my first week off, and I just needed a week to recoup myself and get things back on track. So I am back, and I'm hoping to be back more regularly. Um, we'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna try and get some guests back on and get things rolling again. I think it'll be a little bit easier for me now that wrestling is over for the season. Um, but we are back in this episode. I knew I wanted to shoot and I wanted to do and just explain the sport of wrestling to me and my journey with it, and what it's meant to me and what it's led me to be in the person I've become. There's so many places you can go with this, but I'm just gonna try to stick with the key highlights. I've touched on some things in other episodes and talking with, I've talked with a couple coaches and a couple of my friends I've wrestled with or coached, and I've hinted at the sport. And even in my first episode, I talked a little bit about it. But I'd like to take just a little deeper dive into it today. I'm not sure how long this will be. Again, I'm by myself. It might be 25 minutes. It might be 45. It might be an hour. I'm not totally sure. I tend to talk faster when I'm by myself. So, but we'll get started. We'll get started at youth wrestling. I don't even know. I would really have to ask my dad if I was 5 or 6 or 7. I really don't remember. I know I was little, probably 5 or 6 when I started wrestling. Um, Absolutely hated it. I won 1-19 my first year of wrestling. I won one match. I would just go out there and get pinned right away. As a kid, I didn't know any better. I knew I didn't enjoy losing. Um, but my older brother Kyle, was very good at wrestling, and I enjoyed watching him wrestle. Um, and I really didn't want to wrestle. But the next year, I got good, and a lot of kids have this, especially at the youth level, where they figure out one move that they're just good at that the other kids haven't learned or learned the defense to yet, and they're really good. Their record's really good because they just pin everybody in one move. Usually it's the headlock, but for me it was the bulldog or the tomahawk or whatever you want to call it. I figured that move out, and I won a lot of matches. I believe it was my second year. Um, I remember now I did freestyle and Greco back then. Didn't quite do my way yet. Eventually, my way came into the picture, but I remember we started with freestyle and Greco, and that's all we wrestled as kids. So there was age divisions that started with Pee Wee and Bantam, and then midget, and then novice or schoolboys in there. I don't even remember them all. Um, but I remember that at the time, Pee Wee and Bantam couldn't go to states because it was just too young, too many kids. They wouldn't let you go to states. You couldn't go to states until you were midget, which was like 9 and 10, I think. I don't even remember, but I remember I won districts and regionals as a Bantam and couldn't go to states because I was too young. That was the year that I think I just pinned everybody in the bulldog. Not that I was any good, but that was the move I did. And we wrestled for CCWC, Capital City Wrestling Club, up at Sexton High School. And man, we had a good program. It was a lot of future really good wrestlers came out of that program. Um, and unfortunately, we all kind of went our own ways. Some of us went to Grand Ledge, some of us went to Holt, some stuck it out at Sexton. Um, Waverly, and just all over our area. Everybody kind of just departed, but we had a heck of a group growing up and had a lot of fun. Um, But yeah, I didn't like wrestling much as a kid. I remember, like I said, freestyle and Greco, and then we went into my way. Um, and man, my dad had us practicing a ton. Like Monday and Wednesday up at Sexton, and Tuesday and Thursday up at Eastern. We put in a lot of work, and I hated it. I hated it. I hated going to practice. It wasn't fun, especially because I just wasn't very good at the sport. I enjoyed losing my 2 matches, and then watching my older brother, because man, Kyle was good. He was good. He was taking first, second, and he was in some battles every weekend, and I just enjoyed watching him wrestle. And he pushed me to be a lot better. And it was fun watching him going. All right, I want to be there someday. Like I want to have that success. I want to win some charts. Um, and that's what it was about as a kid. You wanted to win that chart and you wanted the medal. The places with the cool medals, I still go back and look through my medals today, and you just pick out some that you remember just that were cooler than others. Um, that you just enjoyed going to those tournaments and then going and getting those. And then you go to some trophy tournaments where they were handing out small trophies. You're like, oh, I got to get one of those. Um, but yeah, we did a ton of wrestling. For me, I always gravitated towards Greco growing up. I really enjoyed the upper body stuff, which translated really well for me in high school. But yeah, I didn't have a ton of success as a kid. I think I took fourth in Greco states one time, and never placed in freestyle until I was in high school wrestling it. Um, and I never made my way states. We didn't do a ton of my way, but when we did, we were doing my way and MMWA, and MMWA would be like the Detroit area tournaments. It was a different league. It was all folk style, the same style as high school, um, as was my way. But it was like Detroit, and I think the tournaments were on Saturday, and then my way were on Sunday. So we were wrestling back to back days. And then when it was freestyle and Greco season, we'd wrestle Greco Friday nights, and then turn around and come back and wrestle Saturday on freestyle. Just a ton of hours, ton of driving from my dad. Um, Looking back, it's just, I can't even imagine. We drove all over the place in the state, and just wrestled all the time. It was just, it's what we did. It's what the Naps did. My dad was a wrestler in high school at Sexton, and he pushed us to wrestle. I got to say, I didn't like it as a kid, and I just wasn't very good. I started having some success in middle school. Um, when I went, I moved over to Grand Ledge School District, went to Hayes Middle School. Seventh grade, and I remember these records. I don't really remember any of my youth records besides my first year. I was 1-19. But I remember from middle school, I was 12-7 in seventh grade. Um, Wrestled 105 pounds, little bit of success, above 500, nothing great. And then eighth grade, I think is when I really started to enjoy wrestling, and everybody wants to win. And I think that's why I really started to pick it up. And I went 17-2 my eighth grade year. I lost 2 matches, one to a Dundee kid, and one in the league tournament final, I guess, that they have every year at Eaton Rapids. I lost to Travis Curley from St. John's by 1 point. I will never forget that match. So shout out Travis. He's a great kid. Went to St. John's, won some state titles. I believe popped over to MSU maybe for a bit. But yeah, I lost 2 matches in eighth grade. Um, Went into my freshman year of high school just really starting to really enjoy the sport, as I found success. You see a lot of times kids wrestle their whole youth, and by the time they get to high school, they're just burnt out from wrestling, and we did so much of it. Um, but I just wasn't enjoying it, and I think finding the new love when I did, right going into high school, just kind of pushed me and drove me. Through those 4 years. Not that I enjoyed it all the time. I mean, wrestling practice is tough. It's a grind. It is a grind. Um, And, Coach Delaney was my coach. It was his first year as the head coach there at Grand Ledge, my freshman year. He had been an assistant. He'd been a head coach over at Everett. He had been an assistant at Grand Ledge for a bit, but this was his first year as a head coach. Um, and I will still say this, and tell him this. He was a lot tougher then. He was. Those first couple of years, he was trying to prove his point and show us what was what. He was tough, and I've coached alongside him since, and he's softened up a little bit. But man, he put us through some workouts those first couple of years. But I enjoyed it. I did. I went in my freshman year. My brother was a junior, so I had the opportunity to wrestle with my brother for 2 years alongside him, and had a blast. Um, Not my freshman year, but my sophomore year, we were practice partners a little bit, and he was wrestling 52 his senior year. Well, he was weighing 52. He's wrestling up a little bit, but I was wrestling 40. So he had a little bit on me, but he would just beat the crap out of me, just beat me up. And I remember us getting into it a little bit where Delaney had to separate us and be like, all right, you guys aren't practicing together for the rest of practice or the rest of the week, whatever it may be. Um, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being on the same team as him, and experiencing that. We had fun. My freshman year, though, I came in 119 pounds. I wrestled 115 my 8th grade year. Came in 119 pounds, and varsity. I beat a senior out for the varsity spot. And then in the first challenge match, so I was varsity 119 for a while. He came back down, I think, and beat me. So I went up to 125 and was wrestling varsity a bit. But mostly I was varsity 19 most of the whole year. I never wrestled JV. I was bouncing around between 19 and 25. And then by the end of it, I guess that was kind of my year of growing there. Just by the end of it, I ended up wrestling districts at 130. I was just struggling to make weight and getting bigger and growing. So I wrestled districts at 130. I didn't make it out of districts. I was 29 and 19 as a freshman on varsity. So had some success, nothing great. But 29 matches won as a freshman is good. At the time, it was the most varsity matches won as a freshman. Since that has been pulverized by many freshmen, as we've had some great kids running through Grand Ledge. Yeah, I would say 5, 6, maybe even 7 kids have surpassed that. So, which is great to see. My sophomore year, like I said, I was up to 140. I was varsity all year. I think I won 30, 33, 34 matches. But again, I was like 34, I want to say 34 and 13. But again, I didn't make it out of districts. Our district, we were obviously in the Lansing area at Grand Ledge. We would get boosted over to Grand Rapids, and we'd have to go wrestle at Grand Haven for districts, with Grand Haven and Rockford and Jenison had a tough squad. East Kentwood had a tough squad. Grand Haven, Granville, just all these west side of the state schools that we just were not used to wrestling, and they put it on us. They put it on us. They put it on me, and I didn't make it out of districts. Not that that's an excuse at all. I just wasn't good enough. Wasn't mature enough. I was a young for my grade. I graduated high school at 17 years old. You'll see now kids are graduating. Parents will hold them back for sports for a year, and these kids are graduating at 19. So I graduated at 17. I wasn't mature enough into my body, and couldn't get it done when it came down to it. So didn't make it out of districts as a sophomore. And then going into between my sophomore and junior year, I went from 140. I wrestled freestyle and Greco states at 171. The most I have ever weighed in my life, still to this date. I got chubby. But I took third in the states at freestyle and won my first Greco state title, um, which was awesome. I got to shout you out. My guy, Seth Hanton, I've never in my life beat him, and I got to beat him at Greco because he was a freestyle and folk style guy. Um, One of my best friends. So I got to take my shot when I can have it. Love you, bud. But yeah, I won that, and that was really, I think, the turning point for me was that off season. I just stayed on the mat. Usually, I do a tiny bit of freestyle and Greco, and I wouldn't wrestle. I didn't do a ton of wrestling in the off season. I just after the grind of the season, I just wasn't one of those guys. I wasn't doing the off season tournaments. Um, we went to a camp every summer. Even now as a coach, I hate camps. I mean, it does good for the kids, but you learn all this stuff in June and then you don't come back and wrestle until November. And so, if you're not wrestling all year long, I don't really know what the camps do a ton for you. It's fun to learn some new things, but the retention is hard, especially for high school kids. Um, so yeah, I didn't wrestle a ton. I didn't do a ton in the off season normally, but that year I felt like I put in some work. I wanted to get better. I remember my sophomore year, I got put out of districts in the blood round. Um, I remember being in the hallway in a corner, throwing a fit, throwing a fit. I hate this sport. I'm never wrestling again, right? And I think if you've wrestled, you've been in those moments where you lose, and I'm done with it. I never want to wrestle again. And I remember Coach Delaney coming up and talking to me, and he's like, "Calm down, calm down. We'll get you wrestling this off season. We'll be where we need to be. Relax." Um, but an issue of mine is I hated weightlifting. I've never lifted in my life. I just felt like I would rather wrestle. I would rather wrestle than lift weights and be strong. I'd rather be wrestling strong. And being good at Greco, like I am throwing people around, you would imagine that I would lift weights, but I hated it. Still hate it. Um, and as a coach, I probably lack that. We don't lift very much. It's just not a preference of mine. Probably something I definitely know it's something as a coach I can improve on. It's just not something that we do often. But yeah, I wrestled that off season, went into my junior year. I was a captain and I found success. I was always really good at making the tournament, the finals of a tournament and coming up with that silver. I was just second after second. I never won a tournament my freshman year. I never won a tournament my sophomore year. I always found myself placing, second to fourth. I was good for that. But I just couldn't beat that guy in the finals. And things finally started to really click my junior year. I got to the end of the season. I was on a huge winning streak, um, and I won the conference tournament at Jackson. I remember I won the conference tournament, rolled right into districts. And remember, I had been put out of districts my freshman and sophomore year. This year, districts we didn't have to get bounced over to the OK Red side there and go to Grand Rapids. We got to hang tight in Lansing at Eastern and wrestle districts. And I can't remember. I may have been seeded one, and I ran through it pretty easy to get to the finals. And um, I had Caleb Haddad of Holt, who I had. Uh, I guess if you had a rival, if I had a rival, this would be my guy. We wrestled for the first time, and I hate the way this is set up, and it's set up the same now for me as a coach. If you're like the best two teams in the conference, you wrestle the last week of the season. So it was us and Holt. We wrestled our dual meet the last week of the season, and then we would wrestle it the following or the we'd wrestle on Wednesday. Then we would wrestle Saturday in the conference tournament. Well, then we would wrestle the following Saturday at districts and then at regionals. So it just kept you saw the same person. So Grand Ledge and Holt see each other so many times at the end of the year. Um, So I wrestled him in our dual meet, and I beat him. And I remember every one of our matches very vividly. I beat him 11-4 the first time we wrestled. Wrestled him in the conference finals on Saturday. Beat him 7-6. Wrestled him in the district finals the following Saturday. Beat him 3-1 in overtime. So our matches just got closer and closer. So yeah, I won a district title. My first time placing the districts. I won a district title. Rolled into regionals. Uh, whew, I remember, my first time being there, I'm trying to get to states for the first time. That's my goal. I'm ranked decently high in the state at this point, trying to make it to states. I remember my first round. So if you take first at districts, you get a kid who took fourth at the other district. And I remember just being so nervous. And I'll never forget this. Coach Baines, who now is coaching at Langsberg, and I've coached against him a few times now. Just an awesome guy. I remember him just saying, "Hey, man, it's just another match. Just do your thing. It's just another match." Um, and I went out and pinned the kid in the first period, and he's like, "See, what were you worried about?" Um, just a moment I had never been in before, and once I, realized, like, all right, let's go do this thing. Let's go get to states. So I won my first round. I won my next one. I'm in this regional finals. Versus a kid who was ranked higher than me. Uh, I was just happy. I was happy I was going to states for the first time as a junior. Kid took me down and tilted me. It's 5-0 at the end of the first period. I'm like, who cares? I'm going to states. I don't care. Kid takes down, tries to go for a Peterson. And he went to go for a Peterson. I had his wrist, threw a half on him and pinned him in the regional final. I just still don't know how I did that. You don't see that often. But yeah, I got a fall in the regional final, and I was rolling. I had won conference, districts, regionals. I had won 3 straight tournaments. I was on a huge winning streak heading into states. And it was awesome. It was an awesome year. After states, I think I finished the year 42-13. With all my losses to state, at least state qualifiers. Being in, we were Division I at Grand Ledge, we wrestled a tough, I would say a fairly tough schedule, and wrestled some good opponents. I think we saw St. John's a couple times a year, and that was in the middle of when they were just hammers, winning so many state titles in a row with all their studs. And I had to wrestle Logan Wolfert, and he just beat the crap out of me every time. Trying to think of some other kids that just whooped. Mason, I wrestled Tony Burge that year 3 times, and he pinned me every single time in the same move. Oh, that kid is a stud. A couple others that they just were better than me and got the best of me and beat me up. But state tournament, I won my first round. At states, it's 16. They place top 8, so you got to win 2 matches before you lose 2 matches. And I won my first one in a close one. Then my second one, I wrestled Deshaun Nelson from East Kentwood. And this kid was an animal, and I'm not sure how. So he took second at his regional to a Canton kid, Brent Weinkoff. So I had him second round in the quarterfinals, and he pinned me in the first period. I mean, this kid was senior, just huge, strong. So he pins me. He goes on and wins the state title. So I won one, I lost one. I'm now in the blood round, to where if I win, I'm all state. If I lose, I'm packing my bags. And of course, this year was the one year that Lowell, who has now won 8 straight state titles in Division II, this was the one year that Lowell was dropped down to Division I, or I should say up to Division I. And of course, I got my now good buddy Dan Fleet in the blood round. And Dan and I would both go on to go to Olivet, and Dan's an awesome guy. I still just saw him last week at States and talked to him for a minute. But yeah, Dan beat me in the blood round. He had the meanest front headlock that I just couldn't handle it. So I didn't place. I made it to states, and I didn't place my junior year, and it was just devastating because I just felt like I was on such a roll, man. I had won 3 tournaments in a row. I felt like any other spot on that chart, I was placing. I talked about Caleb Haddad from Holt. I beat him 3 times that year. He took 4th in the state at the state tournament. I mean, it just, he took 3rd at regionals and 4th at the state because, and you see this often. It's just placement. It's placement on the chart, and any day anything can happen, and that's the sport of wrestling. I always say it. It's about matchups, and so it was heartbreaking, but I knew I had a great season, and I knew I was going to have a good season my senior year, and I did. I went down and wrestled Disney duels in the summer, and had a lot of fun off the mat, not on the mat. I got my butt kicked down there. I went 3-6, but I had fun. It was a cool experience. Um, and I went into my senior year. Believe this or not, so I didn't place my senior year or my junior year, but I still went into the season ranked first in the state, which by many it was shocking. To me, it wasn't though. I still felt like this was my year to win a state title and to go get it done. Um, and for most of this part of the season, I would say most of the season, excuse me, I felt good. I took 3rd at the first tournament. I lost to Jordan Wolfert in the quarters, or in the semis, excuse me, and ended up taking 3rd. I lost to Roger Wildemo in the finals of a tournament, who was he won a few state titles for Duran, went on to wrestle at MSU. So, I was losing matches I probably should have lost. I didn't lose to anybody I shouldn't have. And I was wrestling well. Um, got to the conference finals. I'm wrestling Caleb. We didn't wrestle in the dual meet because it got snowed out. So I get to the conference finals. I'm wrestling Caleb. He beats me for the first time ever. He beats me in the ultimate ride out. I didn't get away from him, or no, he got away from me. He scored first. He went down. Um, Coach Delaney got kicked out of the tournament for that match for arguing for me, for stalling calls, and that tournament was at Holt, and everything that could have went wrong went wrong for us that day. Freddie Rodriguez, who used to go to Holt, transferred over to Grand Ledge. He lost to Dom Trevino, both buddies of mine that were buddies of each other. I'm sure of it. But Freddie was a 3-time state champ, and Freddie didn't lose. He bumped up to 25. He wanted to wrestle Dom and tried something stupid, and Dom stuck him. And that was just anything. Everything was in Holt's hands, in their gym, and I didn't get it done. I lost in the conference finals. And I gotta say, something. I just talked about this with Cole the other day. Because Coach Chapman, who now coaches for Chelsea, was coaching at Jackson at the time, and I just talked to him about this the other day. I regret this dearly. I didn't show up to the podium. I took 2nd at conference, and I didn't show up to the podium. And I look back and think what an idiot I was, and how cowardly I was. But I just remember I was ticked off. My coach had been thrown out, and I was going to make a stand, right? I didn't go to the podium. I went outside. It was snowing, and I'm just sitting in the snow. And I remember Coach Chapman coming up and talking to me and saying, "Man, this means nothing. Next week, that's when you got to go get it done, when it matters." And I look back at all these little times of coaches, and they just stick with my head. And I hope now, as a coach, when I talk to my kids at these crucial times, that they remember these later in life. And maybe they won't, but just, I think, because I've stayed with the sport and stayed close with these guys that have said these things to me, that they stay in my head, and they're good moments in my life that I remember. But yeah, I just remember Coach Chapman saying, "Hey, you'll get the next one. Get him at districts. That's when it matters. Who cares about this conference title?" And obviously I wanted to win, back-to-back conference titles, and I never want to lose to 1 to Holt, but 2 to Caleb. So We moved on to districts, and again, it was him and I cruising our way to the district finals, and I got him back yet again in overtime, 3-1. I took him down, uh, lefty headlock. I won't forget that one. Um, so we moved on to regionals. Uh, Craziest tournament of my life, probably. First round, I win, and Caleb loses in the first round. Not supposed to happen. Comes out flat. He loses. So now I'm pumped, right? I'm in the semis. I don't got to worry about him. Should be an easy regional title. I'm wrestling AJ Arnett from Romeo. No, Monroe from Monroe. AJ Arnett from Monroe in the semis. I'm up 2-1, 10 seconds left. Just being lazy. Just being lazy. Inside trips me to my back. Um, and I'm just laying there going, shit. I just lost this match. Um, and I lost, and I had to go into the blood round of regionals. And because Caleb lost first round, him and I have to wrestle in the blood round of regionals to go to states. Both of us are seniors. I'm ranked like at this point, I think I'm 3 and he's 4, or I'm 4 and he's 5. We're right there. You know, he took fourth in the state last year. I made it, but didn't place. Um, I'm 3-1 against him at this point. Our last 3 matches have all gone to overtime. I am scared. I mean, I talk about this moment as the scaredest moment of my life, but it was in a good way. I was so scared because everything I had worked for up to that point was on the line right here. And it wasn't some easy opponent. It was my toughest opponent that I had wrestled, my rival, if you will, staring across from me, we're trying to crush each other's dreams. Um, and I just remember as soon as that whistle blew, I ran after him. And this was not my style. I was a feel him out guy and, see how things were going to go, especially a guy I had already wrestled 4 times. I knew how things were going to go. It was going to be a rough, tough. Every time I got done wrestling Caleb, my forehead would be bleeding. He would headbutt the crap out of me. I'd have to tape up my head. These were just battles. But I just ran after him. Whistle went. I ran after him, and I threw him right to his back and pinned him in 27 seconds. Um, I just remember so much relief, just relief leaving my body. And man, Caleb was a hell of a competitor, and I didn't want, in the moment, it's my favorite win I ever had, but he was an all-state kid. There's no doubt about it. So one of us had to go, and then it wasn't going to be me. But I took third at regionals. And because I took third at regionals, my card got dealt very hard. Take third at regionals, you get a kid who takes second at his regional in the first round of states. And I got Nico Parks of East Kentwood. Kid who ended my season as a sophomore in the blood round of districts. He beat me out. And then we wrestled one time in Greco in an off season. I won that match. So we had first round, and him and I were both ranked really high. The winner got John Julian of Heartland, who I had already got my butt whooped by John Julian earlier in the year, 13-6. He was ranked number 1. I think expected to win the tournament was John Julian. So I knew my path was hard. I knew my state title path was going to be very hard. But it was my senior year. So I had to give it a go. I went out there and I was whooping up Nico. I threw him to his back for 5. I think I was up 7-2 maybe in the third period, and the wheels fell off. I ran out of gas. I just collapsed. I couldn't breathe, and he was just taking me down and letting me up and taking me down and letting me up. He got a takedown at the very end and sent it to overtime. and took me down right away in overtime. I mean, right away. Just he had a really nice just club swing single, and I was just too tired. Um, so everything I had worked for to try to win the state title is gone out the window. Round one, I lost in the first round of states. Um, and that'll test your character. I mean, you got a decision like throw in the towel and say, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm just not that good. Um, or keep pushing, man. And I was I was close. My second round match, I went to overtime. Dan Wagner from Southfield, big monster kid. Neither of us did anything. It was 1-1 going into overtime. And he locked up with me, and I tossed him to his back and got the fall. But I mean, I was one more point away from 2-0 and barbecue in that place. But it wasn't meant to be. I got that win, and it started a chain reaction for me. I wrestled. I can't remember his last name. I know it was Mac something from Rochester. He had a um, mean chin whip, and he just liked big stuff. And that was my blood round match, and I won that match and became all state. And then I wrestled Zach Schaefer from Romeo. Um, Again, I'm just pounding this kid. I'm up 11-2 going into the third period. Um, and I'm down. I'm 11-2 and I'm going down. Should be an easy point, but Zach had a mean cradle. And he threw legs, and I got called for stalling like 3 times in the third period. He locked up a cradle on me at the very end. I rolled through, thankfully. I hung on to win 11-9. So I was going for, if I won my next match, I was going to go for third and fourth. If I lost, I was going to go for fifth and sixth. And the way the chart worked out, Nico Parks had lost in the semis after upsetting John Julian. I got Nico Parks again. And I talked about Caleb being my favorite match. This is probably my second favorite match of all time. I got Nico Parks again. He beat me first round. We start the match just like he did before. Boom, single takes me down. I'm down 2-0. He rides me out. He goes down in the third, stands right up. It's 3-0. I'm like, gosh, I just don't think, it's not looking good for me. Boom, club single gets in, drives, and I let drop him for 5. I think I had him pinned, but I don't know. Didn't get the fall. He fought off. It was 5-4 going into the third period. And I still can't figure this out. I don't remember it in my head in the match. Everything was just moving so fast. It was 5-4 going into the third. And for some reason, I guess I took neutral and didn't go down, or something, because we started the third period neutral. And I remember I was out of breath. I was dying. I had gave him everything I could to try to pin him. I didn't get the fall. And I was dead, but he kept bleeding. He kept having blood time. So thankfully, he was bleeding. It was letting me catch my breath. I got warned for stalling once. I did a great job of, he slipped on a lefty headlock out of bounds. I was doing a great job of edge wrestling, and I was able to fend him off. Time ran out, and I won 5-4. Man, that one felt good. After he had ended my sophomore season, beat me in the first round, to wrestle back and beat him was really cool. It felt really good. I then went for third and fourth and lost to John Julian from Heartland. He beat me up again. He was quick, physical, mean. I think he went and wrestled at Elma for a little bit. So I took fourth. I finished my senior year 52-8. I piled up 153 victories at Grand Ledge, which is, towards the top of our school. At the time, it was second most, but Dylan Stewart has passed me. I think I'm third most now. I do have the most varsity matches at Grand Ledge. I wrestled 210 varsity matches at Grand Ledge, just the way we used to cram our matches in, and constant double duels, triple duels. Um, I don't think that one will ever get broke, but who knows? Um, but yeah, it was a hell of a career. I loved every second of it at Grand Ledge. I then, I'd wrestled my whole life. I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue to wrestle. Um, I wasn't sure on what I was going to do for college. I got a 3.3 in high school, but I wasn't a brainiac. I didn't love school. Um, so I had no idea what I was going to do. Um, and Coach Brissett had reached out to me and started to talk to me my senior year at Olivet. And I just felt like I would regret it if I didn't give it a shot, at least try. I was on the edge of not wanting to wrestle, and I wanted to just at least give it a try. Um, so I did. I went and wrestled at Olivet for most of my freshman year, and I couldn't do it. I was just getting pulverized every single day, and having zero fun. In my school, I had a 2 point something my freshman year, and I realized, I did start to enjoy school more, and I realized that like I'm here for school. Um, then I quit. I quit wrestling. So I didn't do anything the rest of that year. And then the next year, which is my sophomore year in college, I didn't do anything with wrestling at all. I went to a few of the Olivet tournaments and watched. Um, and then my dad said, "Hey, why don't you come back and be an assistant at Grand Ledge?" My dad had, been a coach my all 4 years as an assistant. He was still helping out, I believe, once I quit wrestling. So I said, sure, why not? We'll give it a shot. I came back and started coaching JV. I was the JV coach for 2 years. And then so that was my last 2 years of college. My junior and senior year, I was a JV coach. And then the next 2 years, I was the varsity B coach. We had so many kids at Grand Ledge. We were rolling out a varsity B, and a JV team. So I was the varsity B coach there for 2 years. And I had a blast. I had a blast the 4 years I coached at Grand Ledge. We won a tournament. We won a varsity tournament with our B team. It was a division. We were wrestling D3, D4 teams, but we won a tournament. We took second in another. We had a good squad and we had a lot of fun. And I actually, between my third and fourth year there, I applied for the Okemos head coaching job. And did not get it, thankfully. I'm very thankful I did not get that job. So I finished off year 4, which was Cole's senior year, who's been on the show, one of my best friends. That was his senior year. It was, my fourth year there, and I was not sure after Cole graduated. I thought, I'll come back for maybe another year or so. We had a really good group of kids still wrestling at the school. But like a month and a half before the next season started, I had heard the Charlotte job was open. The guy they had fallen through. Dan Stafford, I knew the AD there at Charlotte at the time. He was a former Grand Ledge teacher. So I went in for an interview, and a couple of days later, he gave me a call back and offered me the job. And everything happened so fast. It was like, whew, I was 20, just had turned 23, and I'm running my own team in Division II. And really, you see the younger coaches, and from what I see, usually they get to start in D3, D4, really small schools. 23-year-old running a Division II team. You really don't see much of that. So it was very challenging. My first year, I was walking into a kid who was a state runner-up the year before, and I knew I had another good kid. Other than that, I knew nobody on my team. And, I was running a lot of practices at Grand Ledge. I knew how to run practice. I knew how to wrestle. I didn't know how to deal with all the other crap, which is the paperwork, the parents, the administration. I knew none of that stuff. And I learned fast, and I had a blast that first year, and every year, but that first year it was a lot of fun. It was stressful. We went 12-16. Um, so we were in a tough conference. St. John's, DeWitt, and Mason was our conference at the time. We changed the very next year, but we took fourth out of fifth in our conference. I mean, it was brutal. Um, I did not have anyone place at states. Um, Jarrett Thorne was my lone state qualifier. My guy who was a runner-up got kicked off the team. Another kid lost in the blood round of regionals. It was a wild first year, but I got a state qualifier through, which was great. Um, and Jarrett didn't place, but he made it. He was a junior, so he come back year two. I've got Jarrett. I've got a couple talented freshmen coming in. And I should have had another regional qualifier back. He couldn't come out because of his grades. It's always something I've learned as a coach. It is so hard to get through a whole season um, without something going wrong. Every single year as an assistant, as a head coach, somebody, some kid, something is going to go wrong. Just put it on your calendar. You just don't know when. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Year two, we improved. We went from 12 and 16 to 13 and 16. So record wise, we didn't really improve much, but we definitely improved. I could see the improvement. We changed conferences, like I said. So it was Eaton Rapids, Portland, and then us. We took third, which was the goal, right? The goal was we took fourth in our other conference. The goal was third this year. And then year three, I felt like things were going to start to change. And we had a good group of kids. I had, my kids that were freshmen were now junior, getting better. I had a senior, two seniors that were really, really good. Year two, by the way, we didn't have anybody make it to states. Jarrett lost in the blood round of regionals, and had a great career for us. We fell short of the podium. But year three, it just really felt like I had two really talented freshmen the year before, so they were now sophomores. And the big piece was, I got Andrew Hughes transferred over from Grand Ledge. Sat out his junior season, came over. I had coached him his freshman year. I was just an assistant. I really didn't coach him much, but he was on the team. And he was already a two-time All-Stater and a monster. It was his senior year. And he just brought he taught these kids how to win. I mean, I can tell them everything and show them everything, but when they see a kid come in who's winning every match, who's just dominant, who's that guy, he just brings everybody better in the room. And everything just started to happen. I mean, we had a heck of a season. We went 20-7 my third year. Conference runner-up, we beat Portland, who at the time was ranked 10th in the state. Probably, it's tough to say after the year we had this year, but one of my favorite moments as a coach was beating Portland. Year two, Portland beat us 67-9. And we came back and beat them last year in year three, 45-22, when they were ranked 10th in the state and we were unranked. They were Division III, we're Division II. So we got some revenge and got it in a big way. And then we lost to Eaton Rapids, but that was another team that my first year and my second year we wrestled them. We won one match against. It was like 60-something-3, 70-something-3. I mean, we got just bullied by them. And we wrestled them year three, and we had them on the ropes. We were up by one with 2 matches to go in that first duel. And then we lost the last 2 matches and they won the duel. So we took conference runner up. And then we lost to Eaton Rapids at districts. They opened it up a little bit, I think, and beat us by 20. But it was a great year. I got another state qualifier in Andrew Hughes. And he went on to win a state title. So my first state placer just so happened to be my first state champ, which was awesome. Just a fun ride for that kid who just deserved it. And I had an absolute blast being in his corner. We had a fall in the first match, tech fall in the second match, won a 6-3 decision in the semis over Fadril from DeWitt. I like Matt, kid I coached in the summer, um, and then beat John Henry Sosa from Gaylord in the finals. Um, uh, just an awesome experience, and really cool to be there at Ford Field and have a state champ. First time since '97, I believe, Charlotte had a state champ. So, um, just making history. And then this year just finished up a wild COVID year. And the sport of wrestling continues to persevere, and we have so many strong willed and strong-hearted people in this sport. Very thankful we can get through our season, but it was a heartbreaking season, as much success as we had. um, but yeah, we had our seniors that that were freshmen when I came in. This is year 4 for them. um, and I had two very talented juniors who were ranked, a sophomore who is ranked, um, a freshman who's talented. So is everything. This is the best team, right? This just felt like the best team since the beginning. Our goal was states. Our goal was the conference title. Um, which we did not get. Portland put it on us. Portland's really good this year, and they're going to be next year. Portland put it on us again this year. But we were able to defeat Eaton Rapids 37-35. It's been a while since we beat Eaton Rapids. So we yet again, for the second year in a row, were conference runner-ups. So we wrestled Eaton Rapids on Wednesday. The very following Wednesday, we had them again for team districts. We squeaked by Waverly. Waverly's getting better. Props to coaches over there. We beat Waverly 40-34. And then in the district final, we had Eaton Rapids, and we won again 36-33 in a crazy duel. Our first district title for Charlotte since 08-09. So a long time coming. And we get to go to regionals. We had DeWitt. DeWitt's a team. We were missing a couple kids when we wrestled them. They beat us by like 29. We were going to change a lot of things up. I had a kid weighing in. One of my best kids was going to weigh in at. He wrestled 60. I was going to weigh him in at 71 and bump him up to 89. I had another kid cutting down a weight. We were going to do everything we could, throw everything in the book at these guys to try to get by them. But they had to pull out due to COVID. They just had too many cases and couldn't wrestle, which is very unfortunate. So that gave us a bye to the regional final versus Mason, who also had a few kids out due to COVID. But they gave us a dogfight, and our kids wrestled our tails off, and we won 45-30. Regional champs for the first time since 1990 at Charlotte High School. Something I'm very proud of my kids for this season that just happened a few weeks ago. It's just really cool, really, really cool. Unfortunately, we got the eighth seed. You got top 8 is my state shirt we got made here. We got to go to states, which is just such a cool experience for our kids. But they seed the top 8. We got the 8th seed. So we end up wrestling Lowell, the number 1 team in the state. Like I said, they're now defending 8-time champs, and they whooped us 70-12. They gave up 6 points in the semifinals and 7 points in the finals. They're just on a whole nother level. So we finished our year 18-9, conference runner-up, district champ, regional champ. For the second straight year, I was voted regional coach of the year, which is just cool. I like it. It's cool. I think the biggest thing that makes me feel good about it is that it's voted on the other coaches. This isn't something that's just randomized or anything like that. The other coaches vote for you, and for them to see, our success and see where we came from the last 4 years. It's just awesome that they voted it for me. But man, these kids, I never thought coaching would be so much fun. And it is hard. It is a lot of hours and a lot of headaches. But I enjoy it. I really do. I enjoy it. And I love these kids. And I love the sport. I love the sport of wrestling. That's why I say it's the greatest sport on earth. Um, it's you and one other person. It's you and one other person, and there's no excuse. There's no excuse. You win or you lose, it's on you. Um, and I think there's nothing better than that. And uh, it's intense. It's a grind. It's physical. Um, but man, it's fun. And to me, there's no greater joy than being out in the middle of that thing and getting your hand raised. And I worried about, as I was becoming a coach, how it would feel like. I'm not out there. I'm not the one doing it, and it is hard. It is hard to not want to be out there and do it for the kids. And I remember Coach Delaney always saying that. He's like, "It's in your hands now. I want to be out there, but I can't." And I know that feeling now. But the joy of seeing your kids accomplish what they want to set out to accomplish is really cool. And it's not something that I ever expected to be. I didn't expect to be a coach. I didn't expect to be a head coach. But man, 4 years in as a head coach, and I absolutely love it. And I hope I can continue to keep this going and have success. And I love I love what the opportunity they've given me, and the success we've been able to have. It's a school that doesn't have a ton of success, so I hope the wrestling program can be the spark that gets these guys rolling over there. But yeah, I mean, wrestling, I don't know. I don't know what my life would be without this sport. And I got to credit that to my dad. When I didn't want to do it as a kid, um, whether I had a choice or not, he was making me. And you see a lot of times that doesn't work out. And I've spoke on this before, but, a lot of times you see a parent pushing a kid to do something they don't want to do. Um, they kind of go against the grain, and act out and don't want to do it and quit, and you get resentment with that parent. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. And I'm very thankful my dad pushed me to continue in the sport and pushed me to coach, and he now coaches alongside me, and I'm so thankful for it, and couldn't do it without him. um, so yeah, man, wrestling, it's something. If you've done it, you know how hard it is, the love for it, um, and what it can teach you. I mean, there's so many things, and I try to teach my kids what was taught to me, and the life lessons, um, that there's just so many of them in this sport, and there isn't every sport, but I just, like I said, with wrestling being that, it's you and that person, man or woman, um, they, you're the only one you can blame. And I love it. And I love that. I love that feeling. Like I said, now that I can't get my hand raised, when my kids get their hand raised, it's a glorious feeling. Um, Although I had every intention last year of wrestling at the Tournament of Champions in Ohio. It got canceled because of COVID. They moved it this year all the way to West Virginia. Um, 2022, 2022, I will hopefully be on the mat competing. I've got a lot of work to do before then. But we'll see. I'm excited for the opportunity. I don't know how excited I'll be when I get out there. But hey, I said I wasn't sure how long this was going to go. I know I rambled and got super in detail, and that's just what the sport of wrestling does to me. It takes me back to great memories that I can recall. So many. You can go back and say, who is this kid I wrestled in seventh grade? What was the score of the match? And you can just remember it. Wrestlers have this memory, that just goes back, and I'm not the only one. And there's so many, cliches about the sport that you talk with somebody and you go, oh, yep, you're a wrestler, right? Or you see the cauliflower ear. Thankfully, I didn't get that. I know some guys want that. I did not want that. I like my little ears. I'm good. Um, but yeah, I love the sport of wrestling. I truly believe it's the greatest sport in the world. I have no clue where I would be without it or what my life would be like. So I'm thankful to the sport. I'm thankful that you sat here, if you did, and listened to me ramble for an hour. If that's how long it's been, I don't even know. I'm sorry about my camera. I don't know what's up with my computer. My camera looks terrible today to me. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I appreciate you listening. If you haven't followed us already, please do a nap chatter at all the socials. I'm hoping to be back more regular. Um, this is episode 11, the greatest sport in the world. I love wrestling.